Afternoon, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for coming along. Now there's a few filtering in now that I've started talking, which is always good. Not everyone's running off. So, welcome to the Green Farm Collective. We are 6 farmers who came together about 18 months ago, 4 of whom are here today. We've got myself, Michael Kavanarh, Tim Parton, Simon Cowell and Richard Suddes. Unfortunately, Angus, Gowthorpe and Jake Freestone are doing something more important today. Not quite sure what, holiday maybe or something, so they can't be with us. But anyway, we came together about 18 months ago, and we came together because we're all either winners or runners-up of the Soil Farmer of the Year competition. And really, despite the fact that the 6 of us have probably got fairly differing skill sets, we've all got one clear mission, and that is to farm in a more sustainable and, love it or hate it, a more regenerative way. And so we had the idea that we knew we were farming in a sustainable way, and we wanted to be able to monetize that. So we wanted to be able to monetize carbon and biodiversity, first and foremost. And how we did that accurately and legally was one of the major sticking points at the start of our journey. And then we came across Trinity, the Trinity Group. And we've got Oliver and Juan here today from Trinity, and they're going to talk about the software that we're using to quantify what we're doing. So, very excited to say that as of last week, we have actually done our first carbon deal. It's a carbon and biodiversity bundle, and I'm going to talk a bit about that as we go on. So, the Green Farm Collective, who we are and what we're doing. It might be difficult to see this from the back, but basically the method that I have gone through to sell the carbon off my farm is I've entered data into Sandy. Sandy is the platform which quantifies everything, and Ollie is going to talk a bit about that as we go along. The Green Farm Collective then has an audit and a membership fee, and I have to pass that audit and pay that membership fee to then be able to trade through the Green Farm Collective. If I'm working towards being a member of the Green Farm Collective, then that's fine, and I can work towards it, and I can be monitored, and I can then continue to join the Green Farm Collective and be able to sell through us. And if you're not with us, then that's fine. You can still use Sandy, and you can still trade your carbon and biodiversity, but it will be at a lower level than we are trading. So this is a video explaining, hopefully, who our first customer is and why they have invested in us.
Hi, I'm Jane Craigie, and I have just had a fantastic email into my inbox on the Friday ahead of Groundswell. I've just bought 11 tonnes of carbon credits and biodiversity credits from Michael Kavanarh, who farms in Shropshire. So I run a small marketing and communications business specialising in rural food and agriculture. And we also have a side project called the Rural Youth Project, which is about encouraging young people to remain in rural areas, building their leadership skills. And my husband runs a furniture business called Ochre and Wood. So he makes furniture from Scottish hardwoods. So I'm based here in Aberdeenshire, and my colleague Rebecca has an office in Dumfries and Galloway. We employ 7 people in total and subcontract to a further 6. So we really are a vibrant little SME in the rural economy. We work with a range of clients within agriculture and food, ranging from really small diversified farms through to bigger businesses that are supplying the agricultural sector. I've been working with the Green Farm Collective since they formed their group back in April of 2021. And the reason that I got involved is, well, I know Jake Freestone very well and have always really admired him and his approach to farming. It's very integrated with the environment. He's also been a real ambassador for what farmers need to do to improve the health of their soils for many, many years. And when he told me he'd got together with 5 other farmers who had won awards for their soil work, and that they were thinking of starting to look into trading their carbon and biodiversity credits, it just made absolute sense to give them some support. So I've been helping them to identify, what they're going to do in the future, how they're going to do it, how they position themselves, and importantly, telling their amazing stories of what they're doing on their farm. So it's really lovely to feel as a communicator that you can help people who really have a strong mission and belief to make our world better. They believe in people, we believe in people, and I really believe in what the 6 guys that have formed the Green Farm Collective are doing. And I think it's really important with businesses like mine who have a need to offset their carbon position to be really mindful about what they invest in. So to me, it's not just about the carbon that is sequestered in Michael Kavanarh's soil. It's also about the biodiversity work that he's doing on his farm to encourage a wide range of flora and fauna species. And it makes absolute sense to me to offset my carbon needs with the Green Farm Collective, knowing how robust the metrics are behind it, because they've all been gathered via Trinity's Sandy tool, which captures all of the production as well as the biodiversity and carbon metrics from those farms. So it's a really big day for the Green Farm Collective and for my business. And it's really lovely that it's come through ahead of Groundswell, which is exactly the sort of event where we should be talking about this. The green future for agriculture is very firmly on the agenda, as we all know. And there's also been this holy grail of what can farmers potentially earn from the greening of their farms. And this is the first step in it becoming a reality. And it's really lovely to be the first company to trade with the Green Farm Collective. I actually offset some of our environmental footprint here. So we grow our own veg and fruit. We have a lot of work that we're doing with encouraging bird life onto the small holding that we have. We only have 7 acres in total, so there's a limit to how much carbon we can sequester here in the woodland that we have and in the grazing land that we have. But we try and do as much as we can. And as a rural SME, there's only so much that I can invest from a capital perspective into mitigating our carbon footprint, which is fairly minimal and really comes from heating, lighting, and travel to go and visit clients and to go to industry events. So it makes absolute sense for me to offset with somebody that I know, somebody that I trust, and with somebody whose values I share, which is exactly what I've found with the Green Farm Collective. Now, it's been a truly great day, and I really hope that you enjoy hearing more from the Green Farm Collective.
So that was Jane Craigie. Thank you, Jane. As she said, Friday did seem like quite a big day for her and for us, as it's been something we've been working on for a long time. And how does this actually look in terms of figures? So an annual membership to the Green Farm Collective will cost you £250. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to adhere to some of our criteria that I would expect most people that are coming to Groundswell, you're already on that path. You're probably already there. You might be nearly there. But do have a look on our website and you can see the list of criteria that you need to meet to join us and to uphold our values with. The carbon and biodiversity bundle that Jane has bought into, she has paid £100 a tonne for that. And basically, the Green Farm Collective will take a commission of 5% from that, and Trinity Natural Capital Markets will take another 5% commission from that. And that's it. So net to the farmer, you're 90 quid a tonne. I have to add, the biodiversity side of this bundle is the biodiversity on my grassland. So Jane has bought the carbon from my grassland, and there is also a biodiversity bundle on that as well, which Sandy will give you a score. And my grassland has a score of 5-star, which is almost as good as you can get. That's because we're not doing anything particularly fancy. We're rotationally grazing. We're not applying any fertilisers. We run a fairly extensive sheep enterprise on that grassland. We've done lots of hedge laying on there in the past, and we've got plenty of clover and herbal lays as well on that grassland. So all that really helps. And actually, this stacks up to being a financially reasonably lucrative exercise for us. Tim will talk a bit later about separate biodiversity deals that we're going to do as well as part of the Green Farm Collective. And actually, the biodiversity deals we think will be a more exciting part of this than just the carbon. This is clearly a fairly small deal. So this is a carbon certificate, and we've sold 11 carbon removal credits with biodiversity improvements to Jane. So it's a very small deal, but it's the first one to get us across the line. And probably slightly more exciting than that is I've literally had a phone call about an hour ago with a second customer who's seen this happen that now wants to buy another 50 tonnes at this level, which we can do. And assuming we know the customer who it is and the credentials of their company, then we will do it. We will sense check everyone that buys carbon from us or biodiversity from us and make sure that they are aligned to the way of thinking that we are. So that's me for now. I'll hand over to Ollie, who will talk you through the software.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. Well, it's great to be here, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oliver. I'm one of the customer success managers for Trinity Agtech. So obviously, Michael's talked about this fantastic deal that they've done as the Green Farm Collective. But obviously, before you do that, you need to go about measuring and monitoring your natural capital. So I'm going to introduce the Trinity Group. Some of you may have come across us in other contexts. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our next generation of sustainability tool that we've developed. So Michael mentioned Sandy. Sandy is our sustainability tool. So within the group, we've got three main elements. And the top one there at the top is Global Farm Pioneers, which is our free-to-join, non-profit knowledge exchange platform. And there you can connect with like-minded people, share best practice, scientific research, things like that. But for me, I think the really exciting bit is it's completely international. And we make use of real-time translation, so you could be having, conceivably, a conversation with a farmer on the other side of the world about soil health, things like that, which is, I think, it's pretty staggering. It's free to join, so if you do one thing today, come to our tent and sign up to Natural Capital Pioneers, Global Farm Pioneers, sorry. On the bottom left, we've got Trinity Natural Capital Markets, and that is the natural capital trading part of the business. Juan's going to talk about that in just a second. But my role sits within Trinity Agtech, and that's about measuring and managing your natural capital. I'm talking about natural capital because really what we mean is the whole picture. As Mike's shown, there's extra value to be derived from including biodiversity in the equation. And the product we've developed, that I'll show you in just a second, we take that whole picture into account. I think this farm here is a classic example. We know that Paul and John are doing fantastic things for the farm and environment, but if they were to just do a carbon footprint, you'd miss a huge part of the equation. It doesn't see the whole picture. So we're really keen to include those other elements in there as well. So that's the Trinity Natural Capital Group. And what I just want to quickly touch on is often trading natural capital and measuring natural capital get bundled together. And obviously, we think there are fantastic opportunities to be had from trading natural capital. I think the Green Farm Collective have shown there's demand out there. But everyone in this room, I would say, if you are managing land or farming, has something to gain from measuring and managing their natural capital, irrespective of whether you go on to trade natural capital or not. Obviously, if you're going to do that, we'd love for you to use Trinity Natural Capital Markets, and the two are closely integrated. But it's an important distinction to be made there. So don't feel if perhaps you're a little bit unsure. It's still extremely worthwhile to measure your natural capital. It might be because you want to show the provenance of your product. It might be that you want to push back on negative information that's being put forward about agriculture. And it might be that you just want to put yourself in the best possible position to be able to take that that next step in your business's journey. So absolutely, everyone in this room has got something to gain from measuring and managing their natural capital. So we talked a little bit about Sandy. Well, Sandy is our next generation of sustainability tool. We don't look at just carbon, we look at biodiversity, we look at water protection, so your nitrate leaching. And the point is, the information you're providing for your carbon footprint is also extremely relevant for your biodiversity score, for your water protection score as well. So every time you input data to do your carbon footprint, for example, we'll automatically populate those sections as well. So pretty much by the time you've done a carbon footprint, you'll have most of your biodiversity report done as well, and your water protection score. And the aim, in the context of these guys, as we've shown, is to add value to everything you're doing, to really show that full picture, which I think is pretty exciting. And having done carbon footprints in the past, I can really see the value in this. So we've talked about biodiversity. We have a nitrate leaching model in there as well. There's also an economic side to what we do as well. So everything within Sandy is fully costed up. As the saying goes, it's pointless being green if your bank balance is in the red. And we want to introduce that as widely as possible within Sandy. So once you've put that environmental information in there, we can also look at things like yield forecasting, profitability, which, again, for me was hugely exciting. I think it was one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in this. So like I said, we take you through those 3 stages of measurement, management of your natural capital, and then potentially monetization as well. Just for context, Sandy is developed with the latest IPCC 2019 methodology. We use 2 ISO standards. We adhere to 2 ISO standards within Sandy. We're backed by a scientific board with 35 people. So we've got members of staff who've come from Cowell, the Cool Farm tool, and there's a huge amount of expertise within that group. So the idea is that they scrutinise everything that goes on within Sandy, and as and when scientific understanding evolves, the product can evolve as well. So as far as we're concerned, this really reflects the latest scientific understanding, and the idea is to position ourselves really as the most robust calculator out there, which again, adds a lot of credibility. So that's Sandy. I'm sure you've all seen a carbon footprint, so I'm not going to go through now analysing a carbon footprint here, but I would encourage you all to come to our tent. We're just down by the soils tent. Have a look at our products in more detail, and we can show you what a carbon footprint looks like from Sandy, and we can talk about some of your needs. The thing that's really exciting for me that I wanted to emphasise here is the next stage. We don't just stop at giving you a number. We go down this optimisation route. So we often get asked, we have people come to us, especially in my role, who want to do things on natural capital. They don't quite know what. They don't know where to get started. Well, I think for me, this is the starting point. Measure your natural capital, and then we can blueprint on your farm using the information that you've provided, how you'd go about reaching your goals. So, Michael might have a goal of reducing his emissions by X amount. He's already got a very low carbon footprint. Other people might be in a different place. So you can put that information into Sandy. You can set your own goals, and you can set your own limits as well. Exclude things that you don't want to include. And then we use machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the information that you provided, your carbon footprint, to give you a series of management options that you can follow on your farm. And then you'd use Sandy to measure and manage this. So we take you down. I hate talking about the journey. It sounds a bit of a cliche, but it is very much a journey, and we're kind of steering you in the right direction. So we're not aiming to replace decision-making on farm. That's a job for the farm manager, but we're aiming to complement and support you. So that's pretty much Sandy in a nutshell. Like I said, please do come and see us, down the alleyway. We'd love to show your products in more detail. Just realised that was a bit of an innuendo, so apologies. But Juan, I'm going to hand over to Juan. Juan, if I'm a farmer, I've measured my carbon footprint. What do I do now if I want to trade natural capital?
Thank you, Oli. So, as Oli was saying, if you are a farmer and you're using Sandy, you've already done a footprint, you already have an idea of different things that you could do. And then within Sandy, what you can do is the following thing. You can start by setting up your baseline. Now, your baseline, what that means is basically where you are today. What is your position? The way in which we do this is we ask you for your footprint for the past 3 years. Now, once you have your baseline, basically, you are then in a position to be able to generate credits, and I will show you in a second how you do that. And that all happens through Sandy, through Trinity Agtech. Now, one thing which is beautiful about our company is that we are vertically integrated in terms of the value chain of generating credits. So when you are thinking about generating credits, then you can go in a seamless fashion from Trinity Agtech into Trinity Natural Capital Markets. Now, Trinity Natural Capital Markets is basically the place where two things happen. One is where you are able to monitor and report on the different things that you said you were going to do, and that as a consequence you can generate credits. It's also the place where verifiers, because to generate credits you need to have third-party verifiers who are not part of Trinity looking at the data. It's also the place where they go and they look at the data, which massively decrease the cost. And then it's also the place where you can trade. It's the marketplace. And this is very important because if you think about other companies that are doing carbon credits, they are actually a bit of a piecemeal approach. They are typically a user interface. They don't have 37 scientists. They are not able to include new things. They are not able to cover all of the things that we cover. And also, they don't even sell the credits. They give them to brokers that sell your credits, and that means less money to you and less information to the buyers. And then in terms of how it works, visually, again, this is Sandy. What you do is you go to Sandy with your baseline because you've given us 3 years of data. And then what we provide you is with ideas of things that you could do. Now, this is very important. We are not prescriptive. So what that means is that, unlike other companies, we don't tell you, hey, you have to do these 2 or 3 things to generate credits. What we have is a carousel of hundreds of different things that you could do. And what we do is we give you tailored suggestions based on the climate, on the geography, and the type of crops, the things that you do. And then we allow you to choose what you want to do and when you want to do it. And that's what you would do in this screen. Now, once you do that, then obviously we tell you how many credits you can generate. And you can generate credits into the future because you commit to do things in the future. But a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, I've been doing different things over the past few years. What happens there? And that's totally fine. Because we are looking at your past data. If you have been in a downward carbon trajectory, or if you have achieved net zero, you also get rewarded for that. And then obviously you are interested in the economics, right? So we give you an estimation of how much money you can make selling those credits. And then we also give you an estimation of the cost of implementing those practices, and then the other cost that we just discussed, basically the cost of using Sandy, and then obviously the cost of verification. I don't think you can see it here because it's a small screen, but at the very bottom we also have another cost which is called consulting. And what this means is that at the end of the day, we are a science and technology company, but as Jane was saying in the video, this is all about people. And so you may have agronomists that you work with or advisors, and that's totally fine. They can also help you doing this, and actually they will add value to what we do, and they can also take their cut. And because our commission is the lowest in the market, because we only charge 5% versus other companies that charge between 40 and 50%, what that means is that agronomists can also help. They can also charge a commission, and you will still make basically most of the money. Now, once you have gone through all of this process, then you will sign a contract. Now, this is very important. Michael was talking before about doing this in a legal way. We have spent a lot of money and time working with tier 1 law firms who are experts in financial markets, and they are part of the task force, so scaling voluntary carbon markets. And then in every geography where we operate, so for instance in the UK, we are working with one of the leading real estate law firms, which is also very important because what we do is you go through a questionnaire when you start using Sandy, where you say whether you are a landowner or you are a tenant, and also you talk about your tenancy agreement if you are a tenant, and the different provisions and the different consents. And all of this is good because it reduces uncertainty, it mitigates possible disputes in the future, and it just basically increases the value of the carbon credits and obviously the co-benefits associated to them, the biodiversity and the water protection. And once you do that, then basically you are just ready to go and to sell your credits, or you commit to do things in the future. And then when you come here to this screen, this is basically every year. What you do is you provide evidence of what you have done, what you committed to do. You say, okay, I did this. This is the amount of inputs that I've used, and then you provide evidence, which is what the verifiers will look at. And then once you've done that, once your credits have been verified, because you have done what you said you were going to do, then you can go to our marketplace to sell your credits. Very important, which is something that Michael was saying, you remain in control. You obviously have lots of settings in terms of data privacy. And most importantly, you also choose who the buyers are that you want to see your credits and to buy your credits. And you can filter them out in terms of how, what is their approach to sustainability, their commitments, the jurisdiction, different type of things. We basically, the control is for you. And this is the last screen, which is what the buyer of credits would look at. This is also very important because we have a seamless connection between all of the processes. Then the buyer is able to see a lot of data, which is what you need when you build a market. What you need is credibility and transparency. And so here they have everything quantified with the latest science, and that basically means that you get the higher price possible, and you always set up the minimum price that you want to sell at. And then just to finish, basically, just to finish, we always say that we have a fair, efficient, and virtuous proposition. So what this means is that, well, first of all, we believe in, as I was saying before, we believe in people, in bundles. It's very important if you do things in bundles. An example is with the Green Fund Collective, because on the one hand, you lower costs. The verification costs go down by a lot when you trade in a bundle, and also the buyer of the credits is going to prefer to buy from a basket of 100 farmers because obviously it's a diversified pool and there is less risk. And then the other thing, which is I think very important, is that at the end of the day, if you think about this, we've seen carbon credits in the market for the past 10, 15 years, and there was no credits coming from agriculture. All of the credits historically they have come from forestry and from renewable energy, and they've come from the global south, so from Latin America or Southeast Asia. And so what we are doing here for the first time is we are basically bringing the latest science that we didn't have before. We are reducing massively the costs that you couldn't do before to be able to allow farmers to generate credits, which is what needs to happen because, as you know very well, soil is the biggest carbon sink in the world after oceans, and it just didn't make sense that forestry was the only land use that could generate credits. And to finish, this is all about carbon credits, which is obviously the topic of this meeting. But something that you have to think about is that's just one piece of the puzzle. Obviously, you may want to also look at your sustainability when you think about the new subsidies, when you think about how you position your product to sell it at a higher price, and also when you think about sustainability-linked loans and green loans that will come in the future. So that's it on my end.
Thank you, Juan. I hope that's given you all a bit of an idea as to why we believe in Trinity, both in Sandy and in NCM, the robustness of the science behind the software and the robustness of the legal status behind it. I'll now introduce Tim, who's going to talk a bit about biodiversity sales.
Afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all enjoying your day and not getting too overloaded with information already. And I hope you're coping with the heat. I manage a farm in South Staffordshire. We're a 300-hectare arable farm, growing 50-50 spring, winter cropping. That is a picture of one of my cover crops. Now, I would imagine most people in this tent understand the value of a cover crop and what those roots are doing, cultivating our soil, putting oxygen back into the ground, the exudates feeding biology, the mycorrhizal fungi storing all that nutrition in glomalin, and that can be stored for decades. But a lot of customers that we're dealing with are calling out for this biology, and it's the story behind that cover crop that they're really interested in. That natural capital market has got a big value to it. I've sold 2 hectares of cover crop of a company that just wanted, they're not interested in carbon, they just want to go into biodiversity. At this point, I'm not willing to divulge how much I'm getting paid for that, but what I would say, it makes the mid-tier look a complete joke. But it's that value, it's that story that people want to buy into. The predators, the pollinators, everything that cover crop is providing, that sells a story. That company can then go on and sell that story. It's bringing value to their business. They can actually see it, which is why this particular company isn't interested in carbon, but it wants to do its bit. It will offset some carbon with me in the future, but at the moment it's just interested in the biodiversity. That is one of my margins. That's going alongside a watercourse. That's more of a permanent margin. Again, this company has bought 2 hectares of that margin for me. And again, it makes the mid-tier look a complete joke what this particular company is prepared to invest in. The market for biodiversity is vast, and we as farmers have got to understand we are the only ones that can offer this to the world. We're the only ones that can heal the world. We're the only ones that can provide food for the world. And we've got to stand together. By joining us and coming together, we're having the strength to go out and sell and market what we've got. And I think farmers are always very good at keeping their head down and getting on with the job and going for it. But we're not very good at selling ourselves. We're not very good at selling what we've got. And I think now's the time. We've got to be proud of what we can do. We are the heroes of the world. Nobody else can do what we can do. But by joining and coming together, we're stronger. We're stronger together than we are as individuals. And we've got to stand together on this one. And the benefit of that margin in what it can do for holding predators, for holding mice. I have a bird ringing group come on farm, and one particular night they were out with their thermal imaging camera, and they caught harvest mice, and they put it out on Twitter. The Mammal Society got in touch, and they said there are no harvest mice in South Staffordshire. They don't exist. Fortunately, that night they'd got an expert out who confirmed it was a harvest mice. They then got in touch. They brought us some harvest mice. My son bred them over the summer. We released another 36 harvest mice out there just to improve the gene pool of the harvest mice. But it just shows this way of farming and what we've got to offer is saleable. But it's making a big difference to the planet. It's making a big difference to what we can offer for generations to come in improving our soil. But it's so important that we all come together, stand together and sell as one and keep that value. And for once not try to undercut each other, because together, there's only us can do it. It's only us in the world that can do this. And we've just got to be proud of what we can achieve. That's just another one of my margins, again, protecting a watercourse, offering the pollinators. I try to get the margin so they flower late, so those pollinators have got something going into November. So I'm just keeping them alive and keeping them feeding. But it's just selling the story, and people want to buy in. They can use that story to enhance their own businesses. Another thing that we're going to do as Green Farm Collective are enhancing pools on existing farms. I've certainly got a lot of farms that I'd like to clean out, that I'd like to open up and create a biodiversity package. Again, I've got businesses that are willing to invest in that. They can come out and see what we've done and buy into it. They're going to take loads of pictures, enhance their business with what they're achieving. So it's a partnership and working together. And that can offer so much diversity there. That's one I created myself because it's just a passion of mine. And I'm pretty proud of that one. Another thing we're offering is hedge planting on days, so we can offer corporate days where they can bring their staff out, they can see the biodiversity, they can buy into the farm and have a day with us, do some tree planting, do some hedge planting, come back the following year, see what that hedge is looking like, seeing the difference, seeing what they're getting for their money and what they're investing in, and just having that partnership with us. That's just some of the species that the bird group come out on farm. We've got a lot of red data on farm. We've successfully bred 14 kestrels over the last 4 years. We've bred barn owls. We've got a good population of grey partridge. We've got brilliant populations of skylarks. The one night they caught 80 skylarks on one field, which they then ring, they weigh and monitor health, and we're monitoring numbers all the while. But this data is so valuable to prove to companies what we're doing, to see what they're buying, and that's what it's all is. It's just enhancing what I'm doing, but selling that product, selling the story. That's just one of the woodcock that they caught one night, and the greater spotted woodpecker. It's everything has come back on farm since I've been farming this way, and I've never yet seen an unhappy regen farmer unless you're just born miserable. Because who could not enjoy farming in a regenerative manner? We're making more money. There's more diversity on farm. When I'm walking fields, the skylarks flying everywhere. Everything is alive. Everything is working. And that's got a value on it as a farmer. To get those pheromones working in your brain and to walk and be smiling, be happy and enjoy life, enjoy farming. That, to me, is what the whole thing is about. And that's what farming should be. And to think we're providing food for generations to come, but we're improving the soil for generations to come. That, to me, is in essence what farming should be. We are food producers. But if we can heal the planet along that journey and provide food, we are the heroes of the world. Nobody else can do that. And we should be congratulated and rewarded for that. And that's what this package is all about. That's just one of the barn owl chicks from last year, and that's one of the kestrel chicks from last year. We've also got a bird hide on farm. As you can probably guess, I'm pretty passionate about wildlife. But again, that will be some of the days that we offer on the corporate days. They can spend time in the bird hide. We're going to get local schools coming out so we can start to connect with them, and just so they can see the birds that we've got on farm and actually see wildlife in action. And that was birds ringed last year. You can see all the different species there, 1,200 birds in total, which I'm pretty proud of that, because 15, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had bird numbers like that. The farm was dead. It was biologically dead. Now everything is living. It's vibrant. I also collect moths for Rothamsted. It's another passion of mine. I think we've had 300 different species of moth on farm. And I've got moth numbers that would normally be associated with natural woodland. And it's just the fact I don't use insecticides. I'm not going out to kill everything. I don't wake up every day and say, what are we going to kill today? I'm trying to get everything to live and live at one and beat with that heartbeat of nature. So I'm at one with nature and farming with nature. And moth numbers, it's a good clutch of blue tits, for instance. They can eat 1,000 caterpillars a day. I need those good moth numbers to be able to feed that clutch of blue tits or great tits. We get numbers of great tits. We'll be 8, 10 clutches. And the reason the birds can feed those big numbers is because we got food on farm. And it's just showing that you don't have to rewild a farm. You can produce food and have nature working hand in hand. We can live together as one. We've also got bees on farm. It's pollinators. Without pollinators, we all don't exist, basically. So I was very keen to get bees on farm, get our own honey, and that's working really well. That's just a quick insight, but it's just, I can't emphasise enough, we are stronger together, and biodiversity has got a massive value, and let's not underestimate what we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I think you'll do well to beat any of Tim's passion of the speakers here today. Obviously, I see Tim and speak to him a lot, but he's a real inspiration. And even sat up here with him, it's great to listen to him speak like that. And it's such a powerful message that he's putting across there, is that we have something very valuable on farm. We all do. If we're all in here, we're all at Groundswell for the same reason, and we can put a value to that now. And the more of us that get together and that club together and help move things forward, the faster we'll do it, and the faster we'll help to start repairing some of the damage that we've done to this planet. I'm sure there's loads of questions, and we've got plenty of time for questions. So, if you've got a question to ask, stick your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you.
Hello, hi, it's Sam here from the Farm Carbon Toolkit. Thank you for your presentations. Thank you, Jake. Can you hear me if I just shout? Yeah. Thank you, Jake. That was a really inspiring presentation. I've got two questions, quick ones. One is about double claiming, and one about additionality. So with double claiming, do you advise farmers what they can say about their carbon footprint once they've sold their carbon to someone else? Because there's increasing pressure through supply chains to measure and understand carbon. So if the farmer's sold it, they don't essentially have that carbon on their own books anymore. And the second question is about additionality. One of the principles of offsetting is that it's providing money for something that wouldn't happen otherwise. So is additionality considered in your scheme as well?
Thank you for your questions. I will rephrase them because we have a TV, and so that they can remember. So your questions are about double claiming and also about additionality. So in terms of double claiming, two things. One is when you're a farmer and you come to the platform, you sign a legal attestation that basically says there is no double counting, no double claiming, and no double issuance. Those three concepts. And then to answer your question specifically in terms of how you can make the claims or what is the consequence once you sell carbon, basically what we do is we follow the voluntary carbon markets institutions that are basically working on high quality standards, and we basically refer to those. And so in that way we know that we are following the best practice, and then you also know what is the implication. And so as a consequence, for instance, if you are selling carbon credits, you just have to be transparent about it, and you have to say, I sold these offsets. And obviously, whoever is buying those offsets, they have to be clear about, where they are getting those credits from. And again, it's all following the different institutions, like the Tax Foreign Scaling Voluntary Carbon Markets or the Integrity Council and all of these companies. So that's how we go about double claiming. Then in terms of additionality, you are right. So one of the additionality, the concept of additionality is again, you do an improvement, that you wouldn't have done if you were not incentivized to do it because of the credits. And so there are different ways to look at this, and we look at all of the different ways. So the first thing is you are not allowed to sell carbon credits for something that you are required by law to do. So that's the first thing. Any practice that you put in place is something that you are doing either because you want to do it, or perhaps there are subsidies out there, but they are voluntary subsidies. It's never going to be because you're required by law. And then the second thing, which is quite important, is financial additionality. So what that means is that basically, whatever practice you implement, you are not making a profit. You are able to make a profit when you get paid through the carbon credits. And so if you looked at one of our slides, we do an estimation of your P&L. First of all, because it's important for any farmer to know whether they're going to make money. But the other reason why we do that is because we prove financial additionality. We prove what is the upfront cost of any practice and also the ongoing costs, and whether basically you are losing money as a consequence of doing those practices, and how you can actually make a profit by selling those carbon credits. And this is very important because when you combine the two concepts, financial additionality and regulatory additionality, then it's when things become interesting, which is, imagine that you are getting subsidies to do something, and those subsidies are voluntary, so then that's good from a regulatory additionality perspective. But then the other thing that you have to look at is whether you can actually pay for that practice through those subsidies. If those subsidies are not enough, then you are entitled to generate credits, which is actually what we call blended finance, which is a concept that people are talking about with DEFRA, where you have public funding and also private funding, and when you combine both fundings, then is when you can actually make a profit and it makes economic sense. So that's how we go about it.
Hello? Can you hear me? No. Yes, you can. This is a very basic farmer's question. By doing some of the things that we're all being encouraged to do in low soil disturbance or no soil disturbance in order to build carbon, how do we know that we are also building soil biology? And within any of your measurements of the sort of carbon toolkit stuff, are you actually measuring soil biology? Because as I'm beginning to understand, we could be building carbon, building organic matters, and yet still have low soil biology. And I just wonder if any of the panelists can answer.
Yeah, I don't know, Tim, you're the resident expert on soil science here, but I think within our tool, we encourage you to add soil sample data. In terms of soil biology, that's one of the categories we look at in the biodiversity section of the tool. So we do ask for sort of quantifying information about management practices that would affect that. I have to apologise off the top of my head. Probably can't go into any more detail on that. But if you want to come, we can definitely talk through it with some of our science team who are just down the road. But yeah, Tim, I don't know if you've got anything to say sort of from a practical farming point of view.
There's ways that we can measure biology. So the microbiometer is a good way of measuring fungi to bacteria ratio. Eurofins do a very good full soil assessment of biology. But you've got to remember, the more biological your soils are going to get, the more carbon you're going to be continually cycling, because biology is eating into that carbon. So the carbon cycle is working constantly. It's one that's difficult to measure. We can do our best to measure it, which Sandy, I think, is the best tool on the market to measure that and see what's going on. But biology is a fickle thing. When it's dry, it'll stop working. When it's too wet, it'll stop working. So it's a difficult one to answer, biology. It's got all the answers. We've still got a lot to learn. I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but I don't fully understand biology myself. I don't think I ever will. I've got this. I always like to know everything if I do something, and I think I've probably bitten off more than I can chew with soil. I think I'll go to my grave and not know everything, because it's a living entity, and we've got so much to learn. And every year I'm learning more. Every year I'm doing different things. But yeah, it's one that's difficult to answer to that question. But there's ways of measuring what we've got biologically. But the more biological your soils are going to get, the more carbon you're going to be continually recycling. Soil will breathe every day. That carbon's being exhaled, and then the plants are going to take that in, because carbon dioxide is heavier than oxygen, so it's a constant process that's always going on, and one that's difficult to measure because weather conditions come into that an awful lot. Do you want to add anything, Simon?
I mean, I'd just say that's why we have the science board behind Trinity as well, because as and when, you know, scientific knowledge and understanding evolves, we can then incorporate that into Sunday. So you know, I think we capture as much as the science board feel that they can confidently capture based on, you know, scientific evidence out there at the moment, you know, and that things have moved on rapidly since I've been in the company, you know, a few months. New features have developed, so as soon as those things evolve, we can incorporate that into Sandy.
Is this working yet? I think at the moment we just assume that everything goes hand in hand with the system, but I mean there's no reason why entomologists can't come out and do some tests and measurements, and that could be incorporated into it in the future.
I believe at the moment there is no accredited standard for monitoring carbon. How, if you do a carbon audit through your Sandy method, you then trade those credits to somebody else, to a third party, but then you suddenly find out that your carbon standard is not the accredited scheme, how will you deal with that? Because you could potentially be in a shortfall of carbon credits which you've already sold to a person. If you understand that question, sorry, it's a bit complicated.
Hi. Yes, a very good question. So, first of all, in terms of protocols, when it comes to science, as Oliver was saying, we use the latest science, which is the 2019 refinement to the IPCC 2006 guidelines. But that science keeps evolving, and this is why we have a scientific board of 37 scientists. Now, to answer your question, basically what you are saying, if I understood it correctly, is that, you know, what happens if now you commit to carbon credits for something that you will do in the future? There is an estimation of, I don't know, you will generate, let's say, 20 credits, and then as time goes by, the science changes, and as a consequence, actually you're not going to be able to generate 20 credits, but you generate, I don't know, 17, something along those lines. So this is one of the reasons why we have done a lot of work with lawyers, and why we have what we call the most robust risk management framework. So risk management, as you can imagine, it's a lot of things. There is natural risk, you know, for weather events. There is also contractual risk, you know, for events of default or like force majeure. And then we have a specific risk that we address, which we call model risk, which is specifically addressing your question. And so what that means is that when you sign the contract to generate credits through Sandy, there are certain conditions as to what will happen in the future if your numbers change because of model reasons. And one of the examples could be because the science has evolved. And what we do have is we have a range, basically like a threshold, of credits that you could be generating that are going to be more or less than the estimation, obviously, because it could also be more. And so there is a range, and within that range, the buyer of the carbon credits is still committing to buy that number, because it's, you know, it may not be exactly the same number, but when you true it up or true it down, they will still commit to buy that same number. Now, obviously, there has to be a limit. Obviously, you know, if you have committed to generate 20 credits, and, you know, I'm going to say something extreme, at the end of the day, then it's actually 0 credits. That would never happen. But obviously, in that situation, there is a consequence, and we have termination events clauses in the contract that look at those instances. But the reality is that because our range is quite conservative, even if the science changes, and as a consequence the number of credits that you generate is going to go up or down, you are still protected, and so is the buyer. And everyone knows what are the rules that you have to follow for when that happens. And having said that, what is very important, even more than this, is the fact that we continue to update the science, because the 37 scientists are part of our team. It's not like, you know, we do this as a one-off. It's a different company, it's a different team of scientists, and then, you know, things kind of get stale. Like, you know, the numbers will always be up to date, which is obviously good for credibility, as I was saying, you know, when it comes to markets.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Trying to understand. So, the Green Farm Collective, you guys are farmers, and we might join up with that for 250 a year. You've got a trading relationship with Trinity to operate the trading arm and the verification system. So the pitch today is if we join up with the Green Farming Collective, and then we part of a group collectively, we cover your credits, whatever you can sell through Trinity, we'll all get a portion of that. Or are we individually selling and write a contract with one, which then has an individual liability to us? I'm not quite sure. Are we collective or are we individually selling?
Yeah, so the idea behind the Green Farm Collective is if we've got customers coming to us wanting to buy 5,000 tonnes of carbon, for example, clearly we can't, as hard as we try, we can't do that. So if we pull all that carbon together and put the Green Farm Collective banner on it, so to speak, then we can get the highest possible value for that carbon and return the highest possible value to our farmers. So it's still your carbon that you're selling as an individual.
But I'm selling it to you, and then if I only generate, this chap here generates 4,000, and Simon's got 500, and I've only got 10.
Then you've only got 10 to sell.
Exactly. But if you have 20,000 a year, you've got a 5,000 bid from the market. We'll get a quarter of what we've generated. Is that how it works?
So they take that one. Yeah. So this is a very important question. So just to be clear, when you sell your credits, you sell your credits directly to the end buyer, to whoever is buying the credits. This is very important because a lot of other coalitions or companies are not clear about this. We don't buy the credits from you, because if we were buying credits from you, what that means is that then we are turning around and we are selling those credits. You don't know what is the end price, and you're actually losing out of money. So what we do is we put you in touch directly to the end buyer. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, which is what he's saying, is the end buyer is willing to pay more because he knows he's buying from a bundle, which has a lot of credibility, because it's a bundle that is endorsed by the Green Farm Collective, and also just simply because it's a bundle. When you are a buyer of credits, if you buy from 1,000 farmers, you are happier because there is less risk. If there is one farmer that goes bust, if there is a fire, that's one farm out of 1,000 farms. And all of this is about the risk, the diversification, and the price. But it's also about the cost. When you trade in a bundle, the verifiers are going to look at the entire bundle. And so what that means is that imagine that we have a bundle of 100 farmers, the verifier is not going to audit each single farm. They will only audit a sample of the 100 farmers. As an example, it could be, say, 5 farmers. Now, the verification cost of auditing 5 farms is going to be spread out across the 100 farms. So the costs go down massively. And then finally, your initial question was in terms of, what are the economics? So they just explain what is basically the subscription fee to be part of the Green Farm Collective. So that's a cost of being part of the Green Farm Collective. And that's it. Then you will sell your credits to the end buyer at a very high price. Your costs will be low, and then the commission that we charge is the lowest in the market. It's 5%. And so obviously, when you make the numbers, basically, by looking at the example that he gave before, I think that with 3 credits, you already break even. In that example, it depends on the example and the price and the bundle.
Hope it doesn't bite. My question is a bit of a follow-up to that one, really. But I'm guessing there's a little bit of confusion. The Green Farm Collective itself doesn't take part in any of the trading, does it? So, devil's advocate here, why join the Green Farm Collective? Why not just trade with Trinity Agtech directly? Or is this part of being a club? And, is it a club rather than a business as such?
Yeah, so you can, by all means, you can trade with Trinity Agtech directly. You can do that. what we're doing is aiming for the highest value carbon and biodiversity possible. And we're working with other companies who are bringing customers to us because they want to buy into the cream of the cream. So, yeah, by all means, you don't have to be a member of Green Farm Collective. You can go on Sandy, you can sell your carbon through natural capital markets. But if you pay that £250 and come with us, then you will get a higher value for everything that you're selling. And you'll get access to those customers that we're bringing along that want to invest in that high-quality carbon and biodiversity.
And is there a sharing of information and ideas between the collective and anybody that joins it?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Chap down here is asking if there's a sharing of ideas and information between the collective. So on the Trinity Global Farm Pioneers, so on there's an area where basically ideas can be shared. They can be shared publicly or they can be shared in a private group. So yeah, absolutely, the Green Farm Collective is on there, and new and interesting things that we're all doing on our farms we'll put on there, we'll share. And certainly with new members that come along, they will have access to that, and hopefully chip into that as well, and we can all learn faster. So that's certainly one of the core values about what the Green Farm Collective was about from day one. Really, is to get more and more like-minded farmers together and speed up this journey that we're all on. Really,
I think the one thing to remember, I haven't heard of anybody getting £100 a tonne for carbon yet. I think we've sort of set the level really high there, and that's the benefit of being part of the Green Farm Collective. We are going for that top price because we can sell the journey, we can sell the story, and we can be genuine because we are genuinely on that journey, and it deserves that higher price. That's the big difference. Together we're stronger.
And it has been said to us many times, and it's been mentioned today, that farmers are terrible marketeers, and actually we need to get far better as an industry at marketing ourselves, and that's what we're trying to do.
There's a chap over here that's been waiting a long time in the green top. Right in the middle there at the back, waiting ages.
You've touched on quite a good points there. It's very encouraging. I think that I've maybe missed it. No one mentioned permanency with all of this. How long have you got to keep it in the ground for? Especially with biodiversity, I think that's crucial because you can fix biodiversity very quickly, but you can also damage it very quickly. So, is there something on that, or how do you cover all that?
Yes, so I will repeat your question so that the TV knows, and also I make sure that I could hear you properly. I think you are talking about durability, right? So for how long you have to commit to do something. So that's a really good point. Now, when you generate carbon credits or biodiversity credits, if we talk about carbon, basically, just to start with a simple example, there are different ways in which you can generate the carbon credit. It can be what we call a reduction credit. So a reduction credit could be, for instance, that you go from diesel to biodiesel, or I don't know, like solar panels, like those type of things. Those reduce the carbon footprint, but they are not putting any CO2 in the soil. And when you do that, that's a reduction credit. It has a given price in the market, and you have no commitment. Once you do it and you provide evidence that you've done it, that's it, right? Because there is no CO2 in the soil. Now, when you generate what we call removal credit, which is CO2 that goes into the soil or into the woody biomass or the plant biomass, then obviously the buyer of the credits, they want to know that soil is going to, that CO2 is going to stay there for a period of time. Now, the length depends. There are programs in the United States that they claim that the permanence is for 100 years. Now, we don't think that makes sense. I mean, it's something that you can put in writing, but there is nobody that is going to be alive for 100 years to be able to commit to a contract for 100 years. So what we've done is we have gone for a trade-off, something that is practical and that there is feasibility and there is also demanded by the market, which is 10 years. Now, what that means is that when you commit to do a practice that puts CO2 in the soil, then for 10 years you have to basically report. You come to Sandy and you basically report and you say that nothing that is I don't know, say like a fire as an example, nothing like that happened in your farm, and so the soil, or you didn't plow, or those type of things. And as a consequence, you are telling the buyer that CO2 remains in the soil. Now, something that is very important is in the case of farmers, because when they do something that is a sustainable practice, they continue to do it. Then not only you are reporting, but also every year you are also generating more credits. So it is not the case that you commit to something, you only get paid for 1 year, and then you have to do reporting, which is very painful, and you don't get paid. Actually, every year, as you report, not only you make sure that there is commitment, of that CO2 to stay in the soil, but you continue to generate credits. And we not only we look at in Sandy, not only we look at the flux of CO2 coming out and coming in, but we also look at the soil carbon stock levels that you keep in your soil. And we also provide you with a third type of credit, which is called retention credit, which is to reward you for keeping soil carbon stock levels high. And that's how it works. And then just to finish, sometimes when I speak with some farmers, they are like a bit hesitant as to whether they want to do something where they continue to do it for like 10 years and they don't want to have a long-term commitment. And that's fine. If you go in Sandy and you don't want a 10-year commitment, you can click on a button that says, I only want a 1-year contract. And when you do that, then we only provide you with suggestions that generate reduction credits, which are only 1-year commitments. So you can always try it, see if you like it, and then continue to do removal credits. And then a final thing that I want to say, in case one of you is thinking about it, before I said that when you are doing reporting, if you have plowed the field, then that may be an issue. Now the thing is, it may be the case that in the next 10 years, there is a disease or there is a drought or something where you actually have to change a little bit how you were doing the reduced tillage. And that's fine. We are aware of that. We take it into account in our contractual terms, and you will not be penalized for that. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, as long as you do something which is a valid reason for doing that, and as long as it is reasonable, you will continue to generate your credits. It will only be the case when you actually have an issue that is either out of your control or you did it on purpose, when you actually, lose some of that.
Unfortunately, I'm having a board waved at me saying time's up. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. As mentioned, we are based in a tent down opposite the Amazon stand. So if anyone wants to come and have a word, then do stick your head in and speak to us. Got computers and everything in there, so you can have a look at all the software and chat to us a bit more about what we're doing. But enjoy, and beer as well. Yeah, there's some beer in there, free beer. So if that doesn't coax you in, then nothing will.
Cold beer.
Free cold beer, yeah. Right, thank you very much. Have a good day.